There's a quiet violence in the word normal, a violence we inflict upon ourselves every single day in ways so subtle we barely notice it happening. You feel it in the hesitation before speaking your mind, in the outfit you changed because it was too much, in the dream you abandoned, because people like us don't do that. Jean-Paul Sartre, the revolutionary French philosopher, saw this violence clearly. He recognized that our desperate pursuit of normality wasn't just a social phenomenon, it was an existential crisis that threatened the very core of human freedom. You see, every morning, millions of people wake up and immediately check their phones, scrolling through carefully curated feeds of normal lives. They measure their happiness against these artificial benchmarks, these phantoms of normality. But here's what Sartre understood decades before Instagram existed. Normality is a prison we've built for ourselves, brick by brick, like with our own hands. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you did something because you truly wanted to, rather than because it was what people normally do? When did you last make a choice that wasn't influenced by this invisible pressure to conform? Sartre would look at our modern world with a mixture of fascination and horror. He'd see how we've taken the very thing he warned us about, this crushing weight of social conformity, and amplified it through technology, through social media, through the constant connectivity that never lets us escape the judgmental gaze of others. But here's where it gets interesting. Sartre wasn't just warning us about the danger of trying to be normal. He was revealing something far more profound about the nature of human existence itself. Something that explains why this obsession with normality isn't just uncomfortable, it's fundamentally at odds with what it means to be human. You see, when you try to be normal, you're not just limiting yourself. You're engaging in a form of self-denial so profound that Sartre would call it a kind of existential suicide. And to understand why, we need to delve deeper into what Sartre discovered about the true nature of human consciousness. Here's what Sartre understood that most people still haven't grasped. Human consciousness is not like a rock or a tree or even a highly sophisticated computer. It's not a thing with fixed properties. Instead, our consciousness is pure possibility, a nothingness that's perpetually becoming. When you truly sit with this idea, it becomes almost dizzying. You are not what you were yesterday. You're not even what you were a moment ago. Every instant of your existence is a new creation, a fresh choice, an opportunity to become something entirely different. But this freedom, this radical, absolute freedom, terrifies us. Sartre called it anguish. It's the vertigo you feel when you realize that nothing about you is fixed, that you're responsible for creating yourself at every moment. And this is where our desperate chase for normality begins to make a twisted kind of sense. You see, we run towards normality like a drowning person clutches at driftwood. We grab onto social roles, conventional behaviors, and accepted patterns of living, not because they fulfill us, but because they save us from the overwhelming responsibility of our freedom. I'm just doing what everyone else does, we tell ourselves. This is just how things are done. But here's the brutal irony that Sartre exposed. In trying to escape our freedom through normality, we're still making a choice. We're choosing not to choose. We're actively selecting our own imprisonment. And this self-imposed confinement doesn't even give us the security we crave. It just adds the weight of bad faith to our existential anguish. Think of how this plays out in your own life. Maybe you chose your career because it was the sensible option. Maybe you maintain relationships that drain you because that's what good people do. Maybe you've shaped your entire personality around what's least likely to offend or stand out. But with each of these compromises, each retreat into normality, you're not just making a simple choice. You're engaging in what Sartre would call a project of self-deception. You're trying to transform yourself from a being of pure possibility into a thing with fixed properties. You're attempting to escape the fundamental nature of human consciousness itself. And this is where Sartre's warning becomes truly haunting. Because this project of self-deception, this desperate attempt to become normal, doesn't just fail. It creates a specific kind of suffering that he called nausea. Nausea isn't just discomfort. It's the visceral reaction that occurs when we can no longer maintain our illusions about the nature of existence. It's that creeping sensation you get when you're sitting in a meeting, playing your role perfectly, and suddenly think, what am I doing here? Who is this person I'm pretending to be? You see, the problem isn't just that we try to be normal. It's that normality itself is a myth. It's a collective fiction we've created to avoid facing the raw, unscripted nature of existence. But reality has a way of breaking through our carefully constructed facades. Think about those moments when the mask slips. Maybe it's at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, and all your carefully constructed justifications about your life choices start to unravel. Or perhaps it's in those brief instances when you catch yourself laughing naturally, only to quickly adjust your behavior back to what's appropriate. These moments of authenticity are like cracks in a dam. They reveal the immense pressure we're constantly under, holding back the flood of our genuine selves. And this is exactly what Sartre was trying to tell us. The more we try to conform to an imagined normal, the more we feel this existential nausea building up inside us. But here's where most people make a crucial mistake. They interpret this nausea as a sign that something is wrong with them. They think if they could just be more normal, more like everyone else, the feeling would go away. What Sartre understood is that this nausea is actually a sign that something is right. It's your authentic self refusing to be suffocated by the straitjacket of normality. This nausea, this discomfort with conformity, isn't a malfunction. It's a feature of human consciousness itself. It's the price we pay for being creatures of possibility, living in a world that demands certainty. And understanding this changes everything about how we should respond to these feelings. But if normality is a prison, then what's the alternative? This is where Sartre's philosophy becomes not just profound, but revolutionary. Because he's not suggesting we should all become rebels without a cause, deliberately violating every social norm just to prove a point. No, he's pointing to something far more subtle and powerful. The key lies in understanding what Sartre called authentic existence. This isn't about finding some true self hidden beneath layers of social conditioning. That would just be replacing one form of fixed identity with another. Instead, authentic existence means fully embracing the terrifying freedom that defines human consciousness. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you stopped treating your past choices as prison bars and started seeing them as stepping stones. What if, instead of saying, "This is just who I am," you started asking, "Who might I become?" This is where Sartre's ideas become dangerous. Dangerous to every system and structure that relies on people accepting their place, their role, their normal position in life. Because once you truly understand that you are nothing but pure possibility, that you must create yourself anew each moment, the whole edifice of social control starts to crumble. But here's the crucial point that separates Sartre's philosophy from mere rebellion. Authentic existence isn't about rejecting all norms and conventions. It's about changing our relationship to them. It's about choosing freely even when we choose to conform, knowing that we could always choose differently. Think about how this shifts everything. When you wear that business suit to work, it's not because that's just what people do. It's because you've freely chosen it as part of your project of self-creation. When you follow social conventions, it's not out of blind obedience, but because you've consciously decided they serve your purposes in that moment. This is what real freedom looks like. Not an absence of constraints, but a conscious engagement with them. And this is where Sartre's warning transforms from a critique into a call to action. But let's be honest, this is where things get really difficult. Because living authentically in today's world isn't just about facing the existential anguish Sartre described. It's about doing so in an age where the pressure to conform has been weaponized by algorithms, monetized by corporations, and turned into a constant digital performance. Your phone buzzes, another notification, another reminder of how you should look, think, feel, be. The machines in our pockets have become like tiny factories mass-producing normality, churning out templates for existence that we're meant to follow. Sartre couldn't have imagined this technological amplification of social pressure, but he understood its underlying mechanism perfectly. You see, what makes these modern tools of conformity so powerful is that they don't just tell you what's normal, they show you constantly in an endless stream of carefully curated images and stories. They create what Sartre would call a false necessity, making it seem like there's only one way to live, one path to happiness, one version of success. But here's where Sartre's insights become more relevant than ever. The more sophisticated these tools of conformity become, the more crucial it is to remember that they're all based on the same fundamental lie, the lie that human beings can be reduced to fixed, predictable patterns. Think about how social media algorithms work. They try to put you in boxes, to predict your behavior, to turn you into a set of data points. But every time you surprise them, every time you act in a way they didn't predict, you're demonstrating what Sartre knew all along, that human consciousness cannot be contained by any system, no matter how sophisticated. This is why authentic existence today requires not just philosophical understanding, but practical resistance. It means deliberately creating spaces in your life where you're not being tracked, measured, and compared. It means learning to sit with the discomfort of not knowing who you're supposed to be. It means recognizing that every suggestion, every recommendation, every "you might also like" is an attempt to narrow the field of your possibilities. And this is where the real challenge begins. Because the hardest part isn't understanding these ideas, it's living them. It's waking up each morning and choosing to face the void of possibility instead of hiding in the comfort of normality. It's feeling that existential anguish and moving forward anyway, knowing that there are no guarantees, no preset paths, no universal guidebook for existence. What does this look like in practice? It starts with small moments of truth. When someone asks, "What do you do?" instead of reciting your job title like it's the sum total of your existence, you might pause. You might acknowledge the complexity of your being. You might say, "Right now, I'm exploring," or "I'm in the process of becoming." These aren't just different words. They're declarations of freedom. They're ways of saying, "I am not a fixed thing. I am a conscious being in constant creation." And yes, people might look at you strangely. They might find your authenticity uncomfortable, because authentic existence is contagious. It makes others question their own conformity. But here's what Sartre would want us to understand. This discomfort is the birth pain of a new way of being. When you stop trying to be normal, you start disrupting the systems that profit from human predictability. You become what Sartre called a break in the chain, a point where the machinery of social conformity starts to malfunction. And this is precisely why it's so crucial. Because every time you choose authenticity over normality, you're not just changing your own life, you're creating a crack in the facade that keeps others trapped in their own self-imposed prisons. You're demonstrating that another way of being is possible. Think about the people in history who've changed the world. They weren't the ones who followed the normal path. They were the ones who dared to be radically themselves, who embraced their freedom even when it meant facing opposition, ridicule, or worse. They understood what Sartre was trying to tell us, that our freedom is both our heaviest burden and our greatest gift. This is the essence of Sartre's warning. Normality isn't just a cage, it's a cage we choose again and again until we forget we have the key. But once you see this truth, once you understand that your consciousness is pure possibility, you can never unsee it. And that's when the real journey begins. So where does this leave us? Not with an easy answer or a 5-step plan to authentic living. That would just be another form of normality in disguise. Instead, it leaves us with a profound challenge and an equally profound opportunity. Remember that quiet violence we talked about at the beginning? That subtle way we crush our own possibilities in the name of being normal? Now we can see it for what it really is. Not just a personal habit, but a collective hypnosis that keeps us from experiencing the full depth and breadth of human existence. But here's the beautiful paradox that Sartre left us with. The moment you truly accept that there is no normal, that your existence is radically free, even the weight of this responsibility becomes a kind of liberation. Because once you stop spending your energy trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for any human being, you can finally start directing that energy toward genuine creation, toward bringing something new into the world that could only come from your unique consciousness. This isn't about becoming some idealized version of yourself. It's about embracing the messy, uncertain, constantly evolving nature of human consciousness. It's about understanding that your discomfort with normality isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's the most human thing about you. So perhaps it's time to stop asking, "Am I normal?" and start asking, "Am I alive to the possibilities of my own existence?" Because in the end, Sartre's warning isn't just about the danger of conformity, it's about the miracle of human consciousness and the tragedy of its voluntary imprisonment. The choice, as always, is yours. But now you can make it with your eyes open, understanding that every moment you spend trying to be normal is a moment stolen from the extraordinary possibility of being fully, radically, authentically yourself. And in a world that's desperately trying to make everyone the same, maybe that's the most revolutionary act of all, to embrace your freedom, face the void of possibility, and dare to exist in your own way, on your own terms, not because it's normal, but because it's real.